Hey, Sooner football fans. This is your Sooner football fans podcast. You got Terry and Rob here, but we're up.
From Terry.
And we are coming at you from the nice and toasty warm podcast palace in the frigid Norman, Oklahoma.
Where we are not affiliated with the University of Oklahoma.
But we do have eligibility left. And Caleb is on the sidelines tonight. He is out delivering ices in the frigid because people are still buying ices even in December when it's cold. I occasionally do, but not that often. We got a great podcast coming up for you. Tanner Brodus. If you don't know him from Twitter, you're going to learn about him from Twitter. All I know is about a month or so ago, Blinken Riley said to follow this guy, and I follow him. He puts out a lot of good statistical information and fun facts about the Sooners and their competition, so that's always fun. Before we get started, let's just go through, make sure if you're listening to us on YouTube to subscribe. We're having a lot of listeners on YouTube here recently, and we appreciate everybody listening. Subscribe to it. Put your comments down there. We try to address them. We've had some pretty good conversations going on here recently. Also on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play. Make sure and subscribe to it there as well. You'll get little alerts that says, tells you when we've dropped new stuff. If you're looking for a tailgate, a professional tailgate, professional team tailgate to go to, check out www.tailgateconnect.com. Dan Donnelly, Sooner fan, who runs the website, can hook you up with some of the best professional game, pro team tailgates that are out there. He does it also with college. He'll probably have some college bowl games out there. So go check that out. Also, if you're looking for a place to watch the game and you're not going to be at the, the Peach Bowl? Yeah, the Peach Bowl that we're going to. Go to the Team Barfinder app on the Apple Store or on Google Play, or go to www.teambarfinder.com. You can find the Sooner Bar near you, but if football season's almost over, you got a pro team, basketball, NBA, all the sports, you can find the bars closest to you with the Team Barfinder app to go watch the games with fans like you. Also, go learn about football with JY on the trenchwarfarereport.com. Great information. He still is with the Football Brainiacs, but he's not doing as much with them. He's got his own site. It's called the Trench Warfare Report. You can go sign up and join that. Get some real cool little insights on the Sooners' offensive and defensive lines, as well as he does stuff on the recruits that are coming in. So hopefully he'll have some new stuff like that coming out. But we finally got Demo out of the podcast palace last night after 2 hours. He refused to leave. So he got into the mode of his Cowboys were winning. He didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
So we were watching the game.
Yeah, they actually won one.
Yeah, and despite the coin flip debacle, did you hear about that?
No.
He sent me a tweet, a text about it. Let me go find his text here real quick.
While you're looking that up, I just want you to know I found a brand new iPhone 11 or 12 or whatever the brand new one is outside of the store a little bit earlier. Mm-hmm. And whoever lost it there needs to quit calling my new phone. I'm just saying.
But here is the story that came out last night. It says, after winning the toss at the beginning of the game, Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott told the official they wanted to kick and did not say we'll defer. Thus, the Cowboys kicked off to begin the game and will kick off to start the second half. Yeah, so.
Alrighty.
Luckily, that didn't cost them. But anyway, we got Demo out of here, and we're fixing to get Tanner on with us here in a bit. But thought I'd give your thoughts. We haven't talked. You weren't on the last one. Any thoughts, Rob, on the Sooners going over in the postseason awards, the Heisman Trophy, the Biletnikoff?
Honestly, as a fan, I kind of like it, Terry, because nothing makes a person madder than going, oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Like, come on.
None of us deserve it?
Listen, CeeDee Lamb is the best receiver in the nation. I don't care what the stats say. and I believe the stats probably say it. But CeeDee Lamb, out of all of them, deserved. Right. I mean, I don't know. I think the other guy's pretty good too, but come on, CeeDee Lamb is the best receiver in the nation.
Yeah. Nobody, thought Jalen was going to win the Heisman. He did come in second, so I don't know how many hundreds of seconds that we've had, which is good. Our feeling, or especially mine, is Natty's not Heisman's.
Right.
So I'm happy with that. We seem to have a difficult time winning playoff and national championship games.
Well, this is brewing
with
up
Heisman Trophy winners
to be the perfect storm for LSU. You get a quarterback that wins a Heisman, and here's what, I don't believe in that curse stuff, but what I do believe in is a quarterback getting so full of himself that he comes out and plays poorly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because
he's trying to live up to that Heisman Trophy.
And a team that gets, motivated against said quarterback and said team, with all the stuff being because I'm telling you, I know LSU fans with all your SEC talent, those of you that are listening out there, because I know some of you are, because of our stats and where our stats are coming from.
Yeah.
I know you have all that SEC talent, but that SEC talent ain't quite what you think it might be matched up against. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what they've had drilled in their heads by ESCCPN for a long time, right?
So, right, exactly.
They're drilling that in. They're so much better. Where they're not really. I mean, has Alabama the last 5, 8 years, 10 years, maybe even if you want, been better? Yep, they have. Are they the only ones? Pretty much. SEC teams kind of jump up there, like Georgia, like LSU. Yeah, they're good, no doubt about it.
Yeah, nobody's saying LSU is a bad team.
Nope.
What we are saying is that Oklahoma is a good team, and Oklahoma's not getting the respect that they deserve. I don't know about from LSU, but I certainly know from the national media perspective and the LSU fan base.
Well, we don't play the game on paper,
right?
For sure, and I will start with that. But on paper, we're every bit the team they are, offensively, and probably better defensively.
Right.
Of course, everybody's going to go, well, they're not playing the SEC teams. Well, the SEC teams are not offensive juggernauts. They're just not. LSU is the best one out of them.
Right.
And they're good, but they're not as good. Their offense is not as good as ours was last year.
No.
And it's not that much better than ours is this year.
Right. So, get off your high horses. We're going to play it on the field, and go ahead and put your comments out there on Twitter and everywhere else that we're going to they're awful vulgar fans too. I
don't know why they got to be that way.
Yeah, no.
Why does it have to be that way? I mean, follow your team, great. Talk noise, but you don't have to be vulgar.
Yeah. So about how bad you're going to beat us all up in Atlanta. We're looking forward to it. I don't think it's going to be a shocker, because I think Oklahoma is. It's when a good team beats another good team, it's not a shock to me. So I know maybe a lot of people outside of Oklahoma may not think that, but it's going to be more of a game than what people think.
Yeah, well, when it's a shock, it's when somebody like Boise State beats Oklahoma. That's a shock.
Right.
Well, who did LSU lose to a couple of years ago? That Michigan lost to Appalachian State. LSU lost to Troy.
Yeah,
I think. That's a shock. Those are shocks.
Right.
When you're, two great programs going at it, that's not a shock.
Right. But it is what it is. I mean, but I'm with you with the postseason awards. I mean, you got to live up to that hype. And then on the Oklahoma side, we were, Creed Humphreys didn't get the Remington, which is crazy.
Right.
Burfict, I don't even think was up for the kicker of the year. How is a guy who doesn't miss a single kick
or extra point
all year long? I don't care if he didn't start until the third game or whatever it was.
That's why he didn't win it. But
still, okay.
But still, he didn't miss.
He didn't miss. I
agree.
At all. Anytime he was out there, wasn't like he was coming in every other time. CD didn't win. Jalen didn't win. And I think that's all the I know we didn't make the Joe Moore Award finalists, but that's, we got a brand new offensive line, but they'll be hauling that big thing back here in the next couple of years to stay for a couple of years, I think.
Well, on the Heisman itself, now, let me say this. Jalen is an elite athlete.
Right.
But much like last year when I said Kyler Murray deserves to win the Heisman, Jalen did not deserve to beat Joe Burrow.
Right. Joe Burrow has had a fantastic season.
Fantastic season.
Right.
Now, don't get me wrong. Jalen's had a great season.
Yeah.
But do you know? Did you see some of the stats?
Oh, yeah.
Jalen has 22 more carries than their leading rusher.
Right.
I mean,
right. Yeah. I mean, the guy who won the Heisman deserved to win the Heisman.
Absolutely.
It's really, and I heard some stuff. I can't think of his name. Old boy from Ohio State, probably the defensive lineman. Is probably the best player in college football.
He's pretty good.
But it doesn't go, until they fix that and say it doesn't go to, it's a quarterback running back award, really.
How would you like to see that change, that Heisman award?
I would like to see it to where, you can't put stats on, I can't think of his name from Ohio State. I just went blank. Sorry, folks. But having to be triple teamed all year long.
Chase Young.
Yeah, he's had to be triple teamed all year long and still broke the Ohio State sack record. Yeah. That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. But I think I'm with you. I don't want it to be the best player on the best team. I want it to be the best player.
Right.
Now, having said that, I think this year it wouldn't have mattered, right? I think the best player won it.
Right.
But, just say there was some kid at, I don't know, running back for Oklahoma State.
You're right.
He had a pretty fantastic year.
And wasn't even considered.
Right.
And, but, it has become an award that is, the best player on the best team a lot of the times. Oklahoma's kind of broken that trend. They were, the last two, honestly, they were the best players out there. Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield, they were it.
Absolutely. There was no question about it. I think last year, no question.
Right.
There might have been some question in Baker's year, but, Baker had a record-breaking, fantastic year. So,
Did you watch the Heisman Bowl yesterday?
I did not.
Yeah, me either. Didn't really care to either. My Steelers lost last night, so I wasn't happy to end the night either. So, but no, I know a lot of people were upset in the Oklahoma market because they had to watch your Dallas Cowboys play instead of their Cleveland Browns play.
Yeah.
But
sorry about your bad luck.
Yeah. But anyway, let's get Tanner on the line and find out what he's all about and follow along and see what, more fun stats he can share with us. All right, Sooner fans, all the way from Denver, Colorado. Or is it Colorado? Which one is it, Rob? Colorado or Colorado? It's kind of like Miami.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I pronounce it O.
Pronounce it O. Denver, Colorado. You've seen him on Twitter recently. Like I said earlier in the podcast, when Blinken retweets somebody and says, give him a follow, you'll love this guy's stuff. Well, you just follow him. No questions asked. But all the way from Denver, we have Tanner Brodus on the phone with us. Boomer, Tanner.
Boomer. Hey guys. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. So tell us a little bit about Tanner. First off, you live in Denver, correct? But you said you're originally from Texas.
Yep. From Texas. Went to University of Oklahoma. Graduated December 2016. I worked with the men's basketball team as a student manager for 3 years. So I had the privilege of being able to go with Buddy Hield and those guys to the Final Four my senior year. Yeah. So living out in Colorado, I've produced some videos here and there about Sooner basketball. I kind of got burned out a couple years ago, but have recently started ramping up my Twitter game as far as the football stats and everything like that. And want to give a thank you and a shout out to Blinken for all the new followers that have decided to follow me.
Blinken has a small. He has more people following him than my hometown has living in it. That's ridiculous. I was born and raised in McAllister, and I think it's like 25,000, and I think that's right where he's pushing it right now, which is crazy for.
Yeah, wild.
But now were you were you raised a Sooner fan? You said you're from Texas, but
yeah. So my oldest brother decided to go to University of Oklahoma. It's actually funny. He was deciding between the University of Texas and the University of Oklahoma. And so we all kind of followed suit after he decided to go to OU, and I'm very grateful that he decided to do that.
So, but is it an Oklahoma family, sports family, or were y'all Texas fans or some other fan?
No, never. Yeah, no, we're all Oklahoma, OU fans, diehard OU fans. So thankfully we got to avoid all of the Charlie Strong and Tom Herman years of pain. So,
yeah, Tom Herman is. I saw somebody. I retweeted it too. I guess I can't think of the guy's name. His new defensive coordinator. Some people said some funny stuff about him.
Can't believe they didn't hire Blinken, to be honest. But.
Yeah, he applied for it.
I know he did.
So I didn't even really look at the picture, but this lady was like, oh my God, look at his arms. The dude has the hair. He looks like Robin Williams, or he has like ape arms, the hairiest arms I've ever seen.
Alrighty.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But, so how did you get into the stats thing? I mean,
are you a skier?
A skier, yeah, in Colorado. Now, first off, are you a skier? Rob's inquisitive right now, so
I actually have only gone skiing once, and I was fairly good at it. I've never tried to snowboard, so have to give it a shot at some point.
Yeah, we're too old to snowboard.
I took Terry to Winter Park. I used to take my family to Winter Park every year. And I took Terry one year. He about died.
Yeah. Yeah, Rob, I think, took out a life insurance policy on me. It was like he's going to die here.
We had a lot of fun though, didn't we?
We did.
We had a lot of fun.
Yes, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
but how did you get into the stats? Is it just something that's always interested you, or?
Yeah, I think honestly, if you're on Twitter long enough, you realize you have to banter a lot with people, sports fans. And I found the best way to argue with people was just to use stats and to put stats in their face. And at that point, it's really hard to argue against it when there's an overwhelmingly amount of data outside of just someone's opinion to argue against. So I don't really know what started it. I'm sure Blinken was a inspiration of mine, but I started tweeting out about 2 or 3 years ago just some basketball stats and got some positive momentum. I actually wrote for the Crimson Cream Machine for a little bit as well. But yeah, the numbers stats have always kind of stuck with me and has kind of become just like an interesting game within Twitter for me. So
yeah, because it's funny how people continue to try to go after Blinken, and he continues to just punch them square in the face.
It's not a good idea.
And I've seen some of but when you throw a stat out, you get a lot of stuff that comes back from opposing fans but y'all played in the Big 12, but we're the SEC, but no,
exactly.
It's like, Pat Jones up here, one of my, even though he's an Oklahoma State ex-coach, some of the stuff that he says it's just fact. I mean, if you look at stats, stats, they don't lie. I mean, you're able, this is Division I football. Yeah, we're not playing.
It can be manipulated, though.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like we're playing in the Sun Belt Conference, because if we were playing in the Sun Belt Conference, our stats would be, astronomical, crazy.
Would they, or would we suck too? I'm just saying.
Well, true. Come on, Rob.
I mean, at some point we would suck.
Because you're playing in the Sun Belt.
Because you're playing in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, but and it's funny, and I'm not a stat person. That's why. I'm barely good at math. Period. and so I like watching you guys. You go at it, and Blinken, but I've enjoyed. I have only a few people that I have alerts on that I need to know when they tweet something.
Am I one of those?
No, Rob. And that's it. That's Tanner, Blinken, James Hell, JY, and Brandon Drum.
Really, it's not one of me.
Yeah, and Oklahoma football. I could care less. I'm a Sooner fan, but I'm not following the Twitter accounts of the basketball team.
Right.
It's just not my sport. But
yeah.
But I have my alerts on because I want to know. Oh, and also I just started one other one. We just went blank. But I got one other person that I have alerts.
It's me, isn't it?
No, it's not you, Rob. You can't Google, remember? So
I feel like he's judging me harshly here, Tanner.
Yeah, I am, because I've seen it. Rob gets excited when he has 20 likes and 4 retweets. He has had some good tweets. Rob works at the stadium. His office is at the stadium, and like before football season, Rob will send out tweets of the progress of the field. The striping, and then the painting of the one, and he gets a lot of responses, like that, and mainly people wanting to know, how are you getting those pictures?
Right. Yeah. Security wouldn't even let me in the gate. You're standing on the field.
So,
yep.
But one of the things I wanted, I was looking at some of your tweets. It's hard to just kind of sit here and read them, but first off, we've talked about it a little bit earlier on in the podcast, is that we are getting a ton of listens right now and downloads on YouTube, and also on our regular podcasts, and technology as it is, I can see where those downloads are coming from. So we're getting a lot of listeners right now from the LSU fan base. Which, thank you very much, guys. We appreciate that. But we're also getting a lot of comments. Now, I talked about it yesterday. They finally stopped. I had a tweet that had a 72-hour conversation on it.
Oh, gosh.
It was just constant and constant. And, I don't like Texas. I don't like Texas A&M. I really don't like Oklahoma State. Neither does Rob.
Right.
But I have yet to see a fan base I don't want to say rabid, because rabid kind of puts it a good term to a fan, to a fan base. You're a rabid fan. These guys are just plain nuts. I mean,
I when I was a student manager, we went to LSU. I don't know if you guys ever watched that, but it was when Ben Simmons was there, and so it was kind of a marquee game. I think OU was ranked 1 at the time. And I came away from that game, and I've said to this day, outside of Big 12 play, I think LSU were the craziest fans in any arena that I went to, and just pretty vulgar.
Right,
and,
exactly.
I mean, there was nothing holding them back, and it was one of those games you just wanted to get out of there as soon as it was over. So
no. And I know, Demo, Derek Morton, was on with us on today's podcast, and he's still looking for the guy that poured a beer down his Jason White shirt when he was 11 years old. Rob, and Rob wasn't here for last time. It was the day before the game.
Oh.
And they were just walking around sightseeing, and some LSU fan poured a beer on a kid.
Nice.
Wow.
And of course, they didn't know that Demo was going to grow up to be, the size of a silverback gorilla.
Now, would he?
but there it goes. I know who he is. Oh boy. I know. Yeah. I remember what he looks like. I don't know his name, but I remember what he looks like. So, but I mean, literally, that was, and the tweet that I retweeted, and I think it may have been on one of your tweets. And because the guy said, I retweeted one of his responses, and it was, y'all have never seen an offense like this offense before. Okay.
Yep.
So I just retweeted it and said,
not since last year.
Yeah, LSU fans are saying this, and then that just started a whirlwind of vulgarities.
Oh,
from LSU. Yep. Yeah, I mean, Rob, I'm serious. It is like literally. I feel like if you'd walk up to one of these guys on the street, you would have to probably fight.
You would lose IQ points just
sure.
by.
All I said on it too. On the next one, I was like, excuse me. We created this offense. We invented it. Lincoln Riley invented it. And then my favorite one, or my favorite response to that was, you guys invented it. You may have invented it, but we have perfected it with SEC talent.
Oh
my gosh.
So
yeah, that's one of the, and that's really kind of the narrative or theme or whatever you want to call it of all the tweets I've been tweeting out recently, is because we've been hearing about how historic this LSU offense is, and it's nothing we've ever seen before. So I was like, okay, well, let's see, just in comparison to Oklahoma or in comparison to the Big 12, how this LSU season offensively stacks up. And really, when you kind of boil it down to some of the main offensive categories are falling into kind of the middle of what Oklahoma's best seasons are. And I even tweeted out that I think Joe Burrow has thrown for more yards this season than any other SEC quarterback, and that wouldn't even make the top 10 in the Big 12. And so it's things like that where you're just like, okay, I get that for LSU this is a very historic season, but that does not mean it's historic across the board.
No,
right, and and that's what we say. I haven't dogged LSU. They are a really good football team,
no doubt about it.
Yep.
Fan bases. This is something nobody that has ever played football or will ever watch football again has seen.
Right.
Listen, go watch Oklahoma 2018.
Right.
All right. You'll change your mind about your offense.
Yep.
And then we said in our YouTube video last week that and we, by the way, Rob, I didn't tell you that people kind of came after us on YouTube comments of that we said that the LSU running game probably misstated it, but they're not good. That's not their strong point, was basically the point. Yeah. But it kind of came across as they're not good. Okay. And then people were like, oh my gosh, what is wrong with you? This and that. I'm like, they're ranked 62nd in the country in rushing offense.
Yep.
How is that?
That's average.
Yeah. And then, your offense, your passing game is what puts you at number one, which how many percentage points are they above us from being number one? Total offense.
They've had one more total yard this whole season.
One more total yard.
Right.
And now isn't our stats are pretty much kind of even across the board. Rushing and passing, it's a even attack.
Yeah, I think we're the only college football playoff team in like the top 16 for both passing and rushing.
Right, but yet LSU's doing something we've never seen before.
Right, exactly. Well, and that's the thing that really bothers me kind of about this year with college football is the consistency from year to year is just, it's so lacking. So when Oklahoma was outscoring people, but their defense was lacking, that was a liability because they weren't a complete team. And now LSU is outscoring people, but their defense is lacking, and it doesn't matter because their offense is so great. So it's like, okay, so where's the consistency from year to year?
Right. That's the frustrating part for me is, this is basically, they are basically, 2017 Oklahoma?
Basically, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, their defensive backfield is their strong point, but I have seen nothing and no proof that says that their front seven can stop a run. I mean, we know what was it? Was it Ole Miss or Mississippi State?
Ole Miss, yeah.
Yeah, Ole Miss that put up over 400 yards of.
Well, Texas put up over 500.
Yeah. So, and we were just, sandblasted for that in 2017, and it did. It cost us a national championship. I mean, I don't think any Sooner fan, that defense that year, we should have beat Georgia. We could have beat Alabama, but the liability on that team was our defense. And defense is, as much as we don't like saying, defense wins championships. You got to stop somebody from scoring. We're not going to get what Lincoln has done with Grinch is going, I've got to get somebody out here with the same type of defensive mind that I have offensive mind. And that Leach is just like, nope, I'm just going to go out here and score 70 points, and you're going to score 68. And I'm going to be happy with that.
Yeah.
But, do you have any, share some of your stuff with us, or either on Twitter that you got right now, or that you haven't dropped that you're saving. You're saving for something, or do you have any in your hip pocket?
Yeah. Well, you kind of touched on their defensive backs, which they're both. It's Fulton and Stingley Jr. And I've tweeted about this, but I just thought I would kind of touch on a little bit more. Is they're really good DBs, but when I started to go through and see how they've handled some of the top wide receivers in the country, they haven't really held up that well. They've played two top 20 wide receivers in Duvernay and Devontae Smith from Alabama, and combine those guys' stats, they're almost averaging 200 yards of receiving, 2 touchdowns apiece, and then they're also almost averaging 10 receptions a game. And so that to me was like a huge advantage to Oklahoma. Obviously, with having CeeDee Lamb on our team, it's one of those things where if you can throw it up to him and trust him, he's going to go up and get it. And that's really what those guys were able to do against LSU. And I think that's really going to be a huge storyline going into this game is, can CeeDee Lamb get the ball? Can he get the ball in space? And can Jalen Hurts trust him enough that even when he's maybe looks like he has the appearance of being covered, can he throw him the ball so he can go make a play?
Right. And, that's been one of the inconsistencies, I think, with Jalen this year. And I know, people have been talking about he's had a hurt throwing hand, I guess. But there's times, like in the Baylor game when he threw that touchdown pass to, I just went blank. It wasn't a CD, but it was on the the outside shoulder.
Basquin? Yeah,
Basquin. That was perfect.
Yep.
And then, some throws that he made in the Texas game to CD here the last couple of games, instead of getting it to him in space, getting it to him 5 yards and letting him go earn the rest of it. Because he can.
Right.
Yeah.
And, maybe, I don't know. As far as off the stats deal, what do you think? Watching the games, we've had people on the podcast. We've noticed it, talking to fans off podcasts and stuff. There's a lot of times CD is breaking wide open. And is that an offensive line issue, you think? Or is it just that I think sometimes it is, but Rob's more of the inclination that he gets happy feet too much. Which I don't understand why a quarterback 6'5", 225 pounds would get that big of happy feet.
6'2"?
6'2". Did I say 6'5"?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to make him bigger.
That's right.
So, but it just, the long ball hasn't been there, which I think really in turn for Oklahoma is better. Yeah. Because we've had for the last 2 years these.
Yeah. Well, in his defense, he's run for his life quite a bit more than Kyler had to.
Right.
So
it's actually interesting. When I was, I did some research and I looked at Oklahoma this year compared to other years. Some of the long passing plays are pretty. They compare pretty close. So like last year, Oklahoma had 7 60-plus yard passing plays, and this year they have 7 60-plus yard passing plays. So I was like, well, that's really interesting because I agree with you. Is when you just watch them, they don't seem as explosive, and I think part of that is just the style optics of the offense. It's not as much of a spread it across the field. It's more of a grind it out sort of offense.
Right.
But I think that some of those plays are open for Jalen because of they rely so much on the run. And that honestly is something I think is a huge advantage for Oklahoma going into this year compared to other years, because in other years it was a very pass heavy offense, and our offensive line didn't hold up as well against the likes of Georgia or Alabama or Clemson. And I actually went back and I was like, okay, I'm curious to see like how many sacks we got versus how many sacks we allowed. And that was a huge mismatch. And I think over the past 3 playoff games, we only had like 4 or 5 total sacks, maybe. And I want to say that our opponents were pushing double digits. And so
wow.
that's going to be a huge advantage, I think, because obviously it's with Jalen. He's the type of guy that if it's not available right away, he's going to tuck it and run, which if the run's not there, then that could be, that could be troublesome. But with us relying more on the run, I feel like we're getting more consistent yards versus, getting sacked and losing 3 or 4 yards or, what have you.
Right. Well, statistic wise, where do we match up our strengths, their weakness? What are the numbers showing us on that?
Yeah. So obviously, their offense is, high flying, and they can sling it around the field, and they rely very heavily on the pass, and they can run it with Edward Hilaire, I think is his name. He's a really good back, kind of a do-it-all back. But this is so going into this game, this was very interesting, I thought, was going into this playoff game compared to other playoff games. This is the best total defense for Oklahoma going in. And LSU, this is the worst defense we're facing in the playoffs. And so that's one thing I think is going to be, that no one's really talking about, is LSU has been getting gashed pretty much all year. And I really do think that if we can methodically move the ball like we did against Baylor in the second half, in that first matchup, obviously,
right.
I really do think that we can control the game pretty much the whole time. And I've heard a lot of people that are like not so confident, but I feel fairly confident going into this game. If we can play our game and don't allow them to dictate it and don't get frazzled, I think we could not dominate necessarily, but I think we can control the game. And I think going into the fourth quarter, it could be tied up or very close.
And then have to rely on, the greatest kicker this season.
Exactly.
Now, and Tina, I think, what you're saying is what we've been saying, and some of the local media has said it. But the local media flips it. Do you want to see how Oklahoma beats LSU? Is watch what Kansas State did to Oklahoma. I prefer to go, no, let's watch what Oklahoma did to Baylor in the second half when we were down 25 points.
Right.
Just completely shut down everything they tried for, 30 minutes. That Baylor couldn't do anything, and then just like you said, methodically
move the ball. Yeah.
And again, people forget, we won that game even with a fumble going into the end zone on our second possession of the second half. Jalen fumbled,
right?
Going in, and all that, and I think that was like a 7-minute drive, I think, that they put together.
Yep.
And I thought, we're screwed now. Because, the way we're driving the ball, we're going to run out of time.
Well, what I like about it is I think that they see the offense this year as compared to last year, and it's not nearly as dynamic. So people are underestimating Jalen, which, I'm not going to say he's not Kyler and he's not Baker.
Right.
He's not Joe Burrow for that matter.
Right.
But he's a very good quarterback.
Yeah.
So if you underestimate him and you think that all he's going to do is run the ball, he will beat you with his arm.
Yeah.
I mean, he can.
Yeah, he can. He has the ability.
Yeah.
And
and the thing and I said this earlier in the year, and I think that Oklahoma, I think Lincoln has finally kind of realized, oh, this is how we win football games. He realized it a little late, obviously, but I think the slower, methodical, moving offense is actually better because it keeps our defense rested. It wears down their defense more. And when you have the confidence and, the genius of Lincoln Riley, and you know, I can score on anyone at any point, then why not kill the clock, kill 5 minutes, 6 minutes, and wear down their defense? And the longer their defense stays on the field, that's the better it will be in the fourth quarter when, they're trying to, stop you on third or fourth down, and then Ramondre Stevenson comes in and, knocks you over. I mean, at that point, that's really what that style of offense can do for you. And that's really how Oklahoma has gotten beat, against like the likes of Georgia. They just got pounded in the second half. I mean, they couldn't stop it and they were worn down. And that's ultimately how they beat Baylor as well.
Right. And, and I think part of, with the last two, and especially last year's offense, I mean, I think Lincoln at times tried to do that, but when you got Kyler Murray, and you got the two fastest human beings, in football, out there, I mean, I know the Army game. I was there. I watched it. I think our longest drive was like 5 plays, something stupid like that, or maybe a little more than that, 7 or 8 plays. But, I mean, they literally had nothing on defense that could stop us. So, we get the ball. They had the ball 3 quarters because they were able to get the 3 yards that they wanted every time and go for it every, on fourth down. But Oklahoma had so much firepower and was so overmatched with them. They couldn't. What are you going to do? Tell Kyler to take a knee when you get 10 yards? Tell Hollywood. Tell these guys we got to control the clock more. But it was like bam, bam, bam. We scored, and then Army would get the ball, and 3 days later score a touchdown, and we'd get the ball, boom, we'd go score. And I think that was, that's what this team, I think, doesn't have that probably helps it even more is, we've got the backs that are going to get the 8 to 12 yards, and even Jalen, the 8 to 12 yards, and that's all we don't need. And occasionally you're going to have that breakout, that long run, the pass to CD or to Basquin or to any of them, Hazelwood. They've all had big plays this year. They couldn't stop water last year from flowing anywhere. And this year, that's the other thing is this is why I'm not a stats guy, because which is crazy. I'm good with Excel spreadsheets, okay, because you can tell that stuff to do everything for you. But I can't find any stat sheets that you can just download to Excel and then I can do with them what I want. What I mean? And I've wanted, and I've tried to sit down and again, I have the patience of a 2-year-old to do this, but how many 3 and outs has Oklahoma had this year? I mean, and to me, that a 3 and out, I know that people are like, we've only had, we've lost the turnover battle. We had the same amount of turnovers as we had last year, 11. And LSU, they're winning the turnover battle if you look at it statistically. But then again, you throw it back on the other side is, I know that we're pretty even. I think they're at 30% and we're at 30% at stopping, the third down. But to me, like the Big 12 championship game, every first down that Baylor ran was a negative yardage. Every single. I don't think they got positive
Great
yards.
defense, no doubt.
Yeah, and it was. And this, you said here last year we went, man, we just need, we need to get off the field, 3 and out, 6 and out. This year the defense shows up and you reach down to take a bite of your sandwich and the defense is coming off the field. You're like, holy cow, we got a 3 and out. And
that's something that's just not been the case for so long. Especially, I mean, given the fact that Oklahoma was 119th last year in opponent third down conversion, and now they're ninth, they were 46%, giving up their opponents on third down conversions last year, and they're 30% this year. I mean, you talk about just a complete turnaround in 1 year. I don't think Alex Grinch gets enough, props for what he's done.
Yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous that now we sit back here and go, well, I'm happy with this defense. I mean, the only time I think the Oklahoma fans felt like it went wrong and the old defense showed up was the Kansas State, and I think that's an anomaly. I mean, I honestly do. I mean, they did things to Oklahoma that I don't believe from what I've heard since. And before that, they didn't do to anybody else. They didn't run those misdirection, line, the line pulling, fake pulling to the left and getting, they just didn't do that. But with Oklahoma, they went, we're gonna let their pursuit take them completely out of the play.
I wonder why they didn't work on anybody else. Because they lost several games after we played them. I was disappointed.
I think they attacked the speed of our defense and said, we just got to fake them out. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of was we got to run plays that go psych. We're going to get you all to run this way, and then we're going to swing around. And JY from Trench Warfare and Teddy Lehman, we talked to Teddy about it at the coaches show. He said it's something he'd never seen before. You don't see an offensive line fake a trap to the other side to where the guard and tackle are pulling to the right and they stop and turn and come around and set a gate on the other side. And that's, or set a fence. And that's what they did a bunch.
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely one thing that worries me probably the most about going into this game. I was watching some tape earlier of the Oklahoma-Alabama game last year, and they crushed us on the kind of the read, where he fakes the handoff and then he throws a slant over the middle. And
every
I think it was 500 and Kenneth Murray. Yeah,
they threw it like 900
they were
times.
crashing every time. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the one part of the defense that's bothered me all year long has been they've gotten a little bit better, and I don't understand why teams haven't attacked it as much. Is our perimeter or outside the tackles. Texas Tech killed us. Even though we beat them, I mean they were running on those edges and they were getting helmet on helmet, and even Ohio State's old coach Urban Meyer was talking about it after the game. He was like, "This is as well as Oklahoma played. Here's a problem, guys." He showed several deals. Is like these guys can't get off blocks on the edges, and if you're an opposing coach, and some teams did, but maybe we did get.
We
better.
Just got better. Yeah, we just got better. They tried, but we got better.
Yeah, and I think part of Grinch's scheme was to and I've seen it more to combat that. He's been sending like Buki or somebody or corner. Hey, you see it coming this side, you go blow it up. We're not going to stand back here and read it because you let somebody get it. We're too small. We're too small in that on the corner, on our corners. So somebody's got to go in there and blow it up.
Yep.
But what has been the we figured out that have you had any Texas fans or A&M, because you started doing the Texas Fact Tuesday, and I've started following Texas football. They put out some of the dumbest tweets that are just, it is literally like, what? You're really promoting. I mean, I retweeted one today, and it was like, charge, and it was them coming out of the tunnle, and one of the guys carrying an American flag, and charge, hook 'em, this is Texas or whatever they put on it. And it didn't look like the guy. It looked like the guy was prancing out onto the field. It really did. And they were they put some right before the last game of the season, finish. They tweeted out finish, and it was like, guys, you've lost 5
Should have
games.
started somewhere.
Yeah.
Finish what?
Yeah, finish. Getting ready to. And honestly, it's really a travesty that the Texas Bowl didn't get them and
I know.
that would have been. However, we do have the quote Little Brother Bowl is what people are calling it.
Right.
But which fan base out of Oklahoma State? Let's go regionally right here with what we normally pick on. Oklahoma State, Texas, and A&M. Which do you have the most fun poking?
Probably because I have my roots down in Texas. Probably Texas. And I have some buddies from Texas too, so I kind of like to rub it in. I also just think it's hilarious every year of the expectations that they have and then the reality of what they're actually in. I feel like A&M and Oklahoma State, that they're still delusional as far as where their program is.
Yeah.
But I feel like they've come to accept it a little bit more as far as where they're at in comparison, and that's why you have Texas A&M fans chanting SEC because they have nothing to chant, about their own program.
Right.
So I think Texas fans, just because I'm from Texas and I can't stand Tom Herman. I mean, probably of all the coaches out there, I think he may be my least favorite.
Mine too.
Yeah, I just don't like his smugness. It's and people say that about Nick Saban. He's just arrogant and everything. Well, you know what? Nick Saban can be.
Yeah.
Right.
How many rings is he wearing?
Right.
Yeah, you've won stuff, so you can be smug. People didn't like Barry.
Exactly.
People didn't like Barry Switzer because Barry Switzer was loud and arrogant. Well, he could be.
Yep.
Because he marched out there and said, "I'm going to beat you as bad as I can." People didn't like Bob Stoops when we were competing. He only won 1, but he competed for 5. Mm-hmm. And people out there, because Bob had no. I don't want to say he disrespected the SEC, which is what I think everybody loved about Bob. Was like, well, we play them every year in a bowl game, and we play them and they don't beat us. And he was the one who would call out. What do they got? They got Alabama. Occasionally LSU. The rest of the SEC is just like everybody else. It's not.
Yeah, and some of them are not as good as anybody else. Their bottom is really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one thing me and Rob talked about too. Is like take the bottom half of the Big 12, the 4 through 10, and match them with 4 through 10 of the other conferences.
Right.
Who do you think comes out ahead on a lot of those games?
So you'd be looking at Vanderbilt, Arkansas,
Kansas. Kansas. I take Kansas.
I think, I think Kansas.
Because Arkansas.
I don't think anyone would be watching that game.
Well, no, nobody from Kansas or.
Their moms wouldn't even watch that game. Come on,
but you get our point. I mean,
exactly.
Let's and you do the same with the top half. Regardless of what you think about conferences and the lack of love that we're getting out of the national media, that this is a de facto play-in for LSU. Well, Oklahoma wins it. You're going to hear the same thing. Again, whether it's Ohio State or Clemson, well, hey, Oklahoma got the better draw, in which we did. I'm not going to deny that.
Right.
But that, getting the better draw gets you that preparedness. You know what I mean? It gets you that extra 2 weeks of preparedness for it if you win it.
Right.
And but I would put Oklahoma, Baylor, Kansas State, I think, is going to be really good in the coming years. That coach, what's going on at TCU? Gary Patterson's, losing his mind or sweating too much or whatever to keep up. But who was third in the Big 12 this year?
Texas.
Texas was third? Ugh.
I believe so.
Yeah, well, I think they're going to get it handed to them by Utah. So,
Yeah.
but and I've always felt that way. I mean, the top half of the Big 12, especially I think Oklahoma can compete with anybody. Period. I don't. Baylor this year.
I'm sorry,
I think
Oklahoma State's third.
Oklahoma State's
yeah.
third, and Oklahoma State is so they're so much. If you want to say that a team reflects their coach, Oklahoma State is the epitome of that.
Well, unfortunately for them, their back is not probably
right.
Why would he chance it?
Right.
Yeah,
I get that, and I hear that the receiver may come back next year, so if that's the case, and he's going to play, so that'll help him out. But
right.
I can't imagine if he's going to go first round, he would come back and play in that game. So,
but I mean, Oklahoma, Mike Gundy's become so flaky, in his press conference and everything else, and that's how his team plays. I mean, one game they show up and they look really good, and the next game they show up and you're like, what the heck happened? I mean, how did you go from looking as good as you did there, and they just reflect what Mike Gundy. Maybe that's how he coaches. I mean, maybe 1 week he's taking his Prozac, and the next week he doesn't, and that's why they look bad. I don't know.
The Oklahoma State's been one of the most interesting programs in the past probably about 10 years because you've had definitely very high highs and low lows, and Gundy has been able to survive them all. So if we could all have the job security of him, I'd be a happy man.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
but you know what? They didn't lose to Kansas, did they?
Nope. But we know who did.
True.
Yeah. How would you like to have been a senior? We've never really talked on that Texas team.
We lost to Kansas.
To lose to Kansas outright.
Yeah. It's like Michigan when they lost to App State.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it was on Kansas home field, which again, nobody saw it because none of the Kansas fans were there.
Right. 12 of them.
Yeah.
Right.
The only reason why anybody knew about it was because ESPN showed it. Because nobody in Kansas knew about it because they weren't there.
Oh, it's Bronco country for sure. I don't think half the people know who Colorado's playing every weekend. So, I will say this though, towards the end of the season, I did not realize that there were as many hostile Utah fans as there are, and they kind of came out of the woodwork on Twitter, and it was a feisty about 2 or 3 days.
Utah, wow. Yeah. They're probably feisty because they just hate the fact they live in Utah.
Well,
I mean, and you said, it's funny when we went to the UCLA game out in California this year, and me and my wife and my son and his family, he lives out there, but we stayed at an Airbnb out by the beach, and game day, I come out, it's a little kind of a garage apartment thing, and I come out and I got my OU stuff on, and this guy, at the house next door was sitting there, and he was looking up, and he was like, brilliant California question. I guess you're from Oklahoma, and I went, yeah. And he goes, they play today, and I went, yeah, they play today, and he goes, who are they playing? And I went, UCLA at the Rose Bowl, and he goes, oh, that'll probably be a pretty good game. Good luck. And I was like, you don't know? I mean, how do you know? A
lot of people don't know.
Yeah, they just out there, and I know Scotty talked about it, living out there. Unless UCLA or USC are doing really good, nobody cares about college football out there. And,
right.
And I guess it's that way in Colorado, because like I said, it's a pro town, and unless Colorado or Colorado State's doing really well, nobody really pays any attention to them. But, yeah, Utah fans though, that's crazy. That I don't think I saw any tweets from Utah fans.
Yeah, it was mostly all they were arguing was the eye test, and they're like, "Have you watched us play?" I'm just like,
Yeah.
I could care less how you play. I care about who you play.
Yeah. I've watched you play, and we would beat you. So, I mean, that's
right. And I think one of my favorite tweets that came out of that was this one Utah fan said something about, you must not watch us play. And so I went through and I found all the TV ratings, and I said, I think that Utah had maybe like one or two games that were in the top 5 as far as the most watched, and Oklahoma had like 8 or 9. I was like, is anyone watching Utah play?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I watched the Washington game, and what did Washington end up? They lost 3 or 4 games.
Yeah, something like that.
Right.
And that was a fist fight. So I mean, okay, you're going to sit here, you barely got past
mediocre.
Yeah, an average Washington, which I don't understand Washington fans either. They're the Huskies, right?
Right.
But yet they chant "Go Dogs." I'm like,
well, the Husky's a dog.
Yeah, but I mean that's something you say, to a bulldog.
Oh.
Maybe they should chant "Mush" or something.
I don't know.
Huskies are benevolent type dogs. They're not something you say
Right.
"Go Dog" to.
Yeah.
Come on, Rob, you know that.
I don't really care what they do, but I mean, honestly, I haven't given it that much thought.
But yeah, so now here's the thing. We had Blinken on last week, and Blinken has told us he's holding off. So I'm expecting like an explosion of Louisiana may burn because they're going to get so mad at Blinken by the time it's over with. He's waiting for the right moment,
Right.
to start throwing his stuff out there. He was like, it's too early right now, but he's watching it.
Yeah.
I mean, do you not asking you to share any of it, but I mean, do you have a musket loaded, with the shot and ball ready that was like, okay, on the Christmas at 6:00, I'm going to fire my cannon across the bow of LSU fans?
I don't know if I have quite the artillery that Blinken does, but yeah, no, I agree. I think he said something about the closer the game gets, the more ridiculous the comments get.
Oh, yeah.
Because, everyone's trying to come out with the hottest take or whatever. So I'm sure there's going to be plenty more material left. Mostly what I've been shooting out right now has just been kind of bringing LSU fans back to earth as far as how good their offense is in realms of just, college football history. And, making them say, okay, yeah, you're having a great year for your program, but let's tone it down. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot more of Heather Dinich or, David Pollack that's gonna say something else that's just gonna, make me want to, release even more. So.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Pollack, I've always kind of liked Pollack. He's always seemed to be kind of level. You know what I mean? It wasn't a deal where he it just shocked me when he said what he did.
Just furthering that SEC narrative.
Yeah.
That's all.
He even I know when we played Georgia, he was a Bulldog, right? He picked Oklahoma.
Yep.
I mean, in the Rose Bowl, he's always seemed to be and it was just like, okay, wait a minute, where did that come from? That Oklahoma basically has, don't even show up, because you've got no chance of even coming close. Which
there was one. I think his name's Barrett Sally. I don't even know what his name is. But he was on Danny Cannell's show, and Danny said, does Oklahoma, have any sort, he said, LSU's going to score. Does Oklahoma have the talent to match up and maybe score, with LSU? And he answered, he's like, absolutely not. And I was just, I honestly, I think I laughed out loud. I was just like, I've never heard a more ridiculous take. And it really just goes to show you that certain analysts or media members are going to pick their team, and then they're going to use whatever argument they can to, kind of boost them up. And it's not really based on who they, if they've watched the games or not. So
right, and I mean, their job. Let's face it, like Heather Dimmitt, she, when all the stuff she was putting out on Twitter, she was trying to promote and she did. She got a lot of responses on a lot of the stuff she was saying all day long on Championship Saturday. And the only problem with LSU fans is that, you could on your Twitter feed, you can mute vulgarities. And I started to mute vulgarities because it was literally, I mean, every not that I don't have a vulgar mouth every now and then, but I try to, keep it clean in public at least. But I thought, okay, I'm gonna tone this down. I went, wait a minute, if I mute the vulgarities, I won't hear anything that an LSU fan says the rest of the year. Because it's, I mean, it'll make a sailor blush, Rob. It is like,
I'm glad I don't look then.
They come with double F-bombs barreling, and it's like, okay, hold on, settle down there, fella.
Here's the thing about people like Dinich and some of those people. They're the stuff they're saying, it only has an effect on people that don't know what real football is. For real fans, the stuff that they're putting out, we're just like, are you drunk?
Yeah.
I mean, really, that's what we're saying. But the casual people that might watch the game, might not watch the game, that's not us. We're going to watch the game no matter what. But for those people that don't really care, they're gonna whatever she says or whatever Pollock says, they're gonna take that at face value.
Right.
And that's what they want.
Right.
But real fans, that doesn't have any effect.
Well, I mean, it's like the one that really set me off, and I retweeted. I was like, "Come on," and I said, "Heather, be better." I mean, it was basically, we're the de facto team in. It's like, okay, let's face it, it's been a 8-team playoff now for 3 weeks. Oregon had to win out. Utah had to win out. Georgia had to win out to get in. Oklahoma had to win out. All those teams had to have something else happen, other teams lose. What happened? Oklahoma won all their games. Oregon lost to Arizona State. Utah loses to Oregon. Georgia loses to LSU. Oklahoma wins. They're
to a really good number 7 ranked team. Yeah.
So they're in. Okay. Well, I had an LSU fan. Everybody had to lose for y'all to get in, but Oklahoma had to win. It's not just Oklahoma. You're sitting out here at number 8. Don't do anything. All these teams, if they lose, will put you in.
Well, it's almost not what she said; it's how she said it, because that's a big duh.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, those things had to happen.
Duh. Exactly.
We had to win too.
Yeah. But it's like, everybody had to lose for y'all to get in. Well, it's okay. If LSU had to win to get in. Yeah. Them and Ohio State and Clemson had the comfort of knowing that if we stumble in our championship game, we're still going to get in.
Right.
Okay. Yep. But all the one-loss teams that were still out there, Georgia, Oklahoma was included, had to win the remaining of their games to even be considered. Mm-hmm. And the only team that did that was Oklahoma.
And that's
it's really baffling, looking at the kind of the commentary is the fact that I've heard it from multiple analysts saying, these are the most 3 dominant teams we've ever had in the playoffs. It's like, wait, there's 4 teams though.
Yeah,
it's honestly, I'm just like, if it were Utah, like as that 4th spot, then I maybe would understand a little bit more, just because from a historic standpoint, Utah is not a powerhouse. They're not a blue blood, but Oklahoma is.
Right.
So it's like, even if we're not necessarily on paper or even, via the eye test as good as these other teams, that doesn't mean we, can't go in. I mean, some of these guys that are on our roster have played in now 2 or 3 playoff games.
Right.
And they have that under their belts, and that's actually an advantage that, some of these LSU guys, none of them have.
Right. Well, and then, even so, you look at it, I mean, regardless of whether Oklahoma would or would not have jumped Utah, it's neither here nor there. But the committee, ESPN, everybody, Fox, everybody would much rather it be this 4 than 3 in Utah. Now you can sit here and dog Oklahoma. That's what they're trying to do is, well, we don't have Utah to slap around. They would much rather it have been either Oklahoma or Oregon or an Alabama or Georgia. You would rather see, okay, here's I don't ever remember. I didn't even know Utah had a college until probably 10 years ago, other than Brigham Young. I'm serious. I thought Brigham Young was like their state school.
Yeah.
I literally did.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wait, Utah has and then there's a Utah State. And I don't think I realized that Utah was a team until Utah State played Oklahoma, several years ago. And I was like, they have other schools other than Brigham Young. I didn't know it. Call me ignorant. I have no issue with that. But there's a lot of schools out there that I sit and look and go, who is that? I've never even heard of them in the, in not the Power 5, but in Division I football. That I'm like,
sure.
Why does Akron have a guy? Why are there teams out here that have Division I football programs? It just doesn't make any sense to me. But so okay, in closing, are you willing to make a prediction in the game, or are you going to go, nope, I'm going to make my prediction on Twitter? Because I'm preaching my prediction all up until the game, and I ain't ashamed of it. But
so are you saying score or just predicting the winner?
Either or. Who do you think's going to win? And if you want to throw a score out there, throw a score out there. If you just want to go, nah, I'm not. I'll rather wait till my score, or either or. If you just, who's going to win the game? Do you think?
Yeah. So I think the last time I heard, I think the total was set to 75.5 now.
Holy cow.
So, yeah. And I thought that was high. And I know, obviously, going into this, people think LSU is going to probably put up 40 or 50 points.
Yeah.
I just don't see this game playing out that way. I think a lot of times when you have two offensive-minded teams, people hype it up that, it's going to be a shootout and everything, and usually the opposite happens. Unless you're playing in the Big 12, and most likely it will happen.
Right.
But I really do feel confident going into this game, and I think Oklahoma comes out on top, and I think it's going to be probably around 35-31.
So, yeah, you're about on key with us. I'm picking Oklahoma 38-28. I think it's.
Yep.
I think it, and I think it's going to be probably 31-28, something like that.
Yeah, if LSU scores 40, they're going to beat us.
Yeah, I just don't think they're going to score 40. I mean, one of the things that Rob and I talked about last year, and that we preached on, is that this defense with a Lincoln Riley offense get 4 stops per, significant stops, get off the field. Hold your opponents under 28 points, and you're going to win the game. They've done that, 28 to 31, 32. They've done that in all but one game.
Yep.
And that was the game we lost. And if your defense gets off the field, gets stops and gets off the field and holds them under 28 points, 28 to 31-ish, something like that, you're going to win the game. Lincoln's going to find a way to score.
Yeah.
35, 40 points a game.
I hope that's right.
Yeah, don't hope, Rob. It's right. I said it. But, I bought into this team. I mean, I think it's the best. I think it's like we said before, Demo, we talked about it last week with Blinken. We talked about it with Demo. This is the best team that Oklahoma has had in the playoffs. Not the best offense.
Yep.
Definitely the best defense we've had.
Sure, yeah.
and probably the best. Not probably. It's the best special teams. It is the most complete team that we put in there. And our issue has been defense. Our issue this year has been turnovers. but I think that's something that's being fixed. And let's face it, turnovers are the easiest things to fix. Don't you think,
Right.
Rob?
Well, I don't know. Turnovers are so random, just like that time Jalen thinks he's going in untouched to the end zone and there's a guy.
A hand
that
reaches out and
slaps
grabs the
it.
ball. Yeah.
I mean, it's just so random. It's
Right.
hard to.
Which reminds
Yeah.
me, I'm sorry to bring up pro football, okay, but last night I was watching my Steelers play. Yes, we lost the game. Ugh, I can't really stand the fact that we got beat by the Bills. But what? Okay, he was trying to cause a fumble, dude.
Yeah.
He reared back and threw a punch and missed the ball that would have killed a rhino. Okay, did you see that?
No, I didn't.
Holy cow, man! They were trying to pull him down, and man, he rears back, and I thought, is that legal? And I thought, well, yeah, it's legal, but I mean, they showed it in slow motion. I mean, he looked like Thor coming in with his hammer and just, and he just went in between the gap in the ball and the guy's arm. If he'd have hit it, he'd have deflated the ball. Mm-hmm. But sorry, I had to bring that. It just popped in my head, But like you said, I mean, like Rob said, the turnovers are random.
Yeah, they are.
Right.
And there's no, Blinken threw out on the podcast with us, I'm not even going to try to requote the stats, but it was, it's like there's no rhyme or reason for them. And, and it's something that we at Oklahoma aren't used to, here the last couple of years. We didn't, and I'm not even sure if that's really true. I mean, it just seems like they've just been bad.
Year. I mean, it's the same, I know, but it's just come at bad times.
Yeah.
A couple times where we're going
I think
into the
actually
end zone.
the past 2 years, we 2017, 2018 were statistically, I think, like either tied for or one of the lowest turnover seasons we've ever had at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And so, like, coming out of that is kind of like stepping back into reality a little bit.
Yeah.
But I do think, like you said, is like when the turnovers are happening is almost as important as how many. And it just seems like when Jalen's about to cross the end zone and he's fumbled it, I think now, 2 times where that's happened, where he was pretty much in, either gonna be in the end zone or was reaching out and the ball just came loose. And it just seems like the ball has not been bouncing our way this year, but hopefully that changes in the playoff.
Yeah. Well, and we know that they work on it because when we were at the coaches show at Rudy's, remember he was talking about Braden Willis reaching back to try to get the ball in the end zone, and Lincoln was like, that's a great effort and stuff, but we don't do that. Yeah, he is. Right. Remember that, Rob? He was talking about it. It was like, he has been, taught. It's all good and stuff, but
a great play that he got in trouble for.
Yeah, he said that.
Right?
Yeah,
you just don't reach the ball. I mean, because he was doing everything he could. He was backward. You know what I mean? He was
because if it goes out of his hand and through the end zone, it's a touchback.
Right. Not that you don't dive, but it was an awkward play. And Lincoln was just like, in that position, you don't do that. You secure the ball because it can roll out. Yep. He can knock it out. You get, you just negate everything. So, and that's something I know that they work on. And I think, hopefully, we play a turnover-free game or one turnover to their one turnover. Hey, because we all know big games like this, it's defense and turnovers is what's going to win it or lose it for you. So, which is scary that we're sitting here thinking defense wins games, and we got a defense.
We got one.
Hey Tanner, tell everybody your Twitter handle, how to follow you, and all that stuff, and what all you do on Twitter again.
Yeah, so you can follow me at Tanner Brodus. It's spelled Brodess. I'm tweeting out a lot of Oklahoma football stats, and I've been tweeting out a lot of OU versus LSU kind of comparisons. So you can follow me there and shoot me a follow or a retweet or whatever you want. And if you don't, then don't follow me.
Yeah,
just simple as that.
It's not going to hurt your feelings, but no, exactly. Guys, it's there, and we do have a lot of folks that aren't on Twitter that, but If you get on Twitter or you don't, or you have a Twitter account and you just don't do it, there's accounts that you have that you need to follow if you're a fan that are enjoyable. They're informative. They're not just random crap. It's informative stuff that you can sit and go, well, I did not know that.
Just like last night, I tweeted out a picture of me and R2D2,
and we didn't know you weren't R2D2.
Everybody thought I was the Wookiee.
You're the Wookiee. But hey, Tanner, we appreciate you being on with us, man. And hopefully, after the season, we can get you on again and talk more stats and more Sooner football with us, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right.
Thanks,
bet.
Tanner. Appreciate it, buddy.
That's the podcast, guys. Boomer Rob.
Boomer Terry.
Boomer Tanner.
Boomer.
Thanks for listening to the Sooner Football Fans Podcast. Sooner Football Fans Podcast is hosted by Rob Mixon, Terry Long, and occasionally Caleb Long. It is produced at the beautiful Podcast Palace in Norman, Oklahoma. Follow us on Twitter at SoonerFBFans and like our Facebook page at Facebook.com/Sooner Football Fans, and visit our website at www.SoonerFootballFans.com to read our blogs and keep up with our tailgating activities. Boomer Sooner, everyone.